Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join this session. Just going to give people a couple of minutes to join and then we'll make a start. Thank you. I can see people are still joining, so let's just give them another minute. Just quickly from a housekeeping perspective, so we do this monthly series of ERP reporting. So this is our experience of working in the ERP industry and bringing out reports, concepts around those reports that are important for businesses. We've talked about sales in the past, we've talked about financials, we've talked about P&Ls, and today we're talking about inventory and a specific topic within inventory around that. Um, Please, if you have any questions, pop it into the chat and I'll pick it up towards the end of the session. But yeah, let's go live. We're 2 minutes up, so I think there are enough people here. So let's make a start. David, can you see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. Good. So what are we going to talk about, guys? We're going to talk about the inventory management, inefficient inventory management issue, specifically around two key challenges, either stocking less or stockouts or overstocking, and what the impact is. Sure, I mean, you can make what you want of the 1.5 trillion problem, but we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about why it happens. We'll talk about what good looks like, and then I'll pass over to David to carry out a demo. So the premise here is that you have an ERP, obviously, because we're doing an ERP reporting series, and what happens when you bring that data into a data warehouse? What possibilities you can have when you have a data warehouse between that and your reporting tool. So in our case, you can use Excel, Power BI, or our reporting engine, and that's what we'll be showcasing today through the course of that. But the purpose is to talk it through this topic. And then obviously anything we discuss here, um, it's always relevant to bring AI into the conversation these days. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about where do we see or where do we think AI can come in your efficient inventory management or inventory planning. So the 1.5 trillion dollar problem, essentially a lot of it is around stockouts. Everyone wants to have the right amount of stock for the right amount of orders, and it's exceptionally difficult to make that happen. Let's just be clear on that. Um, but essentially, there are two sides of this problem. One is the stock out part. So essentially, meaning you don't have enough stock to deliver to that order, or excessive inventory. And this is also a big problem, especially around I want to say perishable goods, because I've seen that with one of our customers, AML Foods, and when they did this properly with us, they managed to save $5 million in working capital. So I've seen that for perishable goods, but I also have a customer recently who joined us, opened up a fixed asset sheet, and told me I've got 15 million of stock lying around. They're not perishable or have an expiry date, but it's still $15 million worth of stock lying around, and my book value or my revenue is not even 50 million, which is quite huge if you think about it. So it's how do I manage my inventory appropriately? And in terms of planning and efficient planning, if you were to do this well, there are a huge amount of gains to be made. Like I said, we've seen a real life example where one of our clients has saved $5 million in working capital in their inventory using some of the things that we're going to showcase today. So fundamentally, it goes down to visibility of your inventory, and reliance a lot on spreadsheets to fill in these planning gaps, these order gaps, and stocking gaps, and so on and so forth. So your forecast accuracy, and please, I'm not anyone to sit here and say, you can get 100% of forecast with any tool. I think there is still a level of error that will always be there, which just comes with forecast. But if trends, those can be matched, some structures can be aligned, some level of accuracy, or a strong level of accuracy rather, can be formulated as well. And yeah, I mean, as we know, if you have stockouts, you're literally running from pillar to post to try and bring that stock in to cover for that order that has come in, and more often than not, this actually ends up with higher shipping costs. Whereas if you have overstocks, it's more storage costs. So just because inventory is in stock and in your warehouse, it is money that is sitting there and not moving. So we'll talk about slow moving and inventory aging and so on and so things today on this topic. Um, so just to elaborate a little bit more, I'm not going to go through every single point because I don't want to teach you how to suck eggs, and I'm sure you're more interested in where what KPIs and stuff you should be looking at to try and have a better efficient inventory management. But very high level, stockouts, lost sales, margin, those problems, overstocking is basically got cash tied to it. Um, Causes basically, and this is just late missing signals on fast movers. And there are, if somebody told us give us one KPI, it's very difficult to kind of put all of it together in one KPI. There are about 5-10 things you have to look at on an ongoing basis, but there's a rhythm to all of this. So if we look at slow moving stock, that is your overstocking area where you can impact. Then you can also see fast moving stock, what actually sells quickly, and so on and so forth. And that's where stockouts can be kind of explored, and alerts and stuff, if they were in there in your data, that can help as well. Surging on orders as well. Generally you order a stock probably 50 at a time, and suddenly you need to order 1,000 because an order are coming. So those kind of things, those kind of surges that come in. Okay. Um, but broadly, it's fragmented signals, basically, which you're not able to identify early enough to make an informed decision to save you from doing this. Okay. A little bit more around, why it happens, inventory dips, you got orders come in and ops just realized too late. So still the concept is the same. You just, if these signals come in earlier, if you could pick these signals earlier, a lot earlier, then it's a lot easier. Overstocking is more, where this is where forecasts start to play a big role, where you're stocking because last year you sold a certain product and you expected 10% more sales to come in. I think I'm personally guilty of that as well. When I build my first sales plan for the year, it's always okay. Let's try 10% higher from last year. But the important thing is there could be a few deals which were anomalies, which were just quite big from the general, average deal size. And not understanding that, not understanding whether there is a market to have that again, not understanding what plans are in place to actually achieve it again, can provide impact and have some downsides to it as well. So we'll talk a few things about this. We'll talk about aging. We'll talk about stock visibility or on-hand stock visibility. We'll talk about slow movers and so on and so forth in a minute when we do the reports with you. Okay, but essentially, where are we going with this? So what does good look like? And please, we're not preaching here that without Zap you can't do this. No, absolutely not. You can build data warehouses yourself. There are probably other tools in the market. We have some value to provide on certain ERPs, and that's why we have close to 500 customers. But essentially, the premise is if you have data available in the right format for you to use on a presentation layer that you are comfortable in. In our world, that is Excel, Power BI, or Zap BI, but for you could be any other tool. But if you have that, what would you do? What is good going to look like for you? So, from our perspective, firstly, it's a health snapshot. What is my aging stock? What is my fast mover? What SKUs are at risk? So that is the fundamental starting point I would be looking at. Aging and so on and so forth. Then I want to look at incoming orders and map the inventory to it. So you got on hold, what is your stock holding at the moment? What incoming orders are there? Can I forecast anything in there? Can I predict anything in there? Those are key. Then open state purchase orders, supplier delays, supplier, how what is the lead time they need, that kind of context. So if you can plug in these data points into your mix, then you will have a steady, healthy view of I won't say a report, but of a series of reports which you can then use to plan your inventory, manage your inventory a lot better. And obviously, on top of that, if you can have alerts with certain thresholds in your data, stock going down a certain level or stock increasing a certain level or a sizable order or so on and so forth, that can further help in doing this as well. Okay, so I'm going to now pass to David, but like I said, any questions you have, please put it on the chat and we will cover this towards the end of the session. Okay, David, I'm going to stop sharing.
Super. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it. Thank you.
Super. Well, thank you, Rohit. Great introduction. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm very excited to be part of this webinar where we're going to be discussing about stockouts, and also we're going to be discussing a little bit about overstocks. So I'm going to take you through a journey where we are going to identify not only the stockouts and the overstocks, but we are going to identify where is the problem. And we're also going to drill down into identifying which are the root causes that are causing this problem, right? So today's session is not just about reviewing figures, reviewing the numbers. It's about understanding how the pulse of our inventory is performing. It's about having the right balance of inventory. It's about having the right balance between what we have today in stock, between what we have the demand, what it's actually on sales, and what is the supply. How are we fulfilling the purchases? So this is quite relevant because this will absolutely impact how the fulfillments of our orders work, how our costs are performing. It will help us project margins, will help us with the cash to cash cycle, and will also help us protect the sales, because if we don't have stock to fulfill the demands, well, we will be losing sales. So without any further ado, let's just jump into the presentation. So I will start by first talking about the problem definition, right? And this report that I'm showing you, and I'm going to zoom in so we can get a closer look at this report. And I'm going to actually, oops, that's not the right screen. I'm going to make a full screen here. So this is the foundations of this report. And this is a typically on-hand analysis that we many times we use to analyze in many businesses, where we have the items. Here we have all the stock products that I have. I have the on-hand quantity. This is the amount that I have available, the physical available quantity that I have. This is what I have in purchase order, and this is what I have in a sales order. So this is basically the demand, right? So then we have here a metric which is basically the total available, which basically is what I have today, which is the total available, minus the inflows and outflows, plus the inflows and minus the outflows, which are the sales orders. And then we have this total available metric, right? And then we have this a total available percentage, which basically is comparing what percentage of the total available of the physical inventory that I have today, it's available, right? And as you can see, this report, if I zoom out, yes, it's giving us interesting information. But the real question here is, how do I interpret this information? Like, what is the meaning of this data? Like, I see some figures that are 595, some other figures are empty, so other figures are 100. And this total available percentage is what we are using as a definition to state the conversation today, which is what is a stock out, what is basically a healthy stock, and what is an overstock, right? So for the purpose of this presentation, for the purpose of this demonstration that I'm going to do today, everything where the available percentage is below zero, we are considering that as a stock out. That means that we do not have enough stock to fulfill the actual sales orders, right? Now, this will obviously depend from industry to industry, from customer to customer. But what we're defining here for this, for the purpose of this presentation, is that everything that fits between 0% of availability and 80% will be considered a low stock, right? And everything between 80% and 120, we will define this as a healthy stock. And everything above 120, we're going to consider this as a overstock. So the key metrics here and the key problems where we will concentrate our attention is everything where we don't have stock. We are not able to stock the demand, and everything where actually the stock is actually accumulating, right? So as I mentioned, every business is different. I'm sure your business is quite unique. You have your own business rules. Depending on the industry or on the sector, this might slightly be different. This is analyzing what is happening today. So obviously, we can extrapolate this to see how these figures are going to perform in the future, right? Other metrics here, I'm only considering inflows and outflows based on the purchase orders and sales orders. But, depending on your business, you might have a manufacturing process. So you might have in production or committed inventory. Maybe you have in transit or inventory that might be damaged or obsolete, or that it's held for inspection. So all of these, I'm just simplifying this scenario. I know that there can be all the types of inflows and outflows, but for this purpose, we are going to concentrate on these specific metrics. Now, I'm going to talk about a framework that I have been recently working with, and I actually very like it. I'm not sure if anyone has used the MECE framework before. It's called the MECE. If anyone has used it before, just write it in the chat. I would love to hear. So basically, this stands, the MECE stands for the Mutual Exclusive Collective Exhaustive Method, and it was just a method which was invented in the 1960s, and it's still very relevant today, especially in the consulting firms. It was developed by McKinsey, and basically, this is breaking down complex problems into different non-overlapping causes that can analyze the 100% of a problem, right? So this is typically used in consulting, but it's also widely used when we are analyzing measurable analytical problems. In this case, when we want to decompose a KPI. So the metric that we're analyzing today are the overstocks, and we are also analyzing the stockouts, right? And the metric that is defining for this analysis, the overstock or the stockouts, is the total available percentage that I have, right? So if we start breaking down this figure, if we start analyzing the total available inventory that I have here, well, this depends on, my sales orders, which are the demand, of analyzing the purchase orders, which is the supply, and also analyzing the on-hand inventory, which is, do I have enough stock or do I have an overstock to meet my current demands, right? And this is, I like this approach because we are actually breaking down these figures logically, and we are splitting, the procurement side. We're integrating the full supply chain. We're analyzing from the inventory lenses. Is it a procurement problem? Is it a sales problem? Or are we facing a stock and inventory challenges? So we're going to break this problem. And again, behind the scenes, behind this purchase order, there might be many metrics, right? For example, for the demand for the sales order, are we making, maybe we had a spike in the demand because we had a spike, maybe the industry is growing and we didn't forecast accurate the demand, right? Or maybe we have a sudden demand fluctuations, or maybe we have poor visibility of the customer purchase orders. In the purchase order side, maybe I have back orders. The supplier is not delivering on time. The supplier might be having a lot of returns. So we're going to drill down into these specifics to understand what are the reasons behind those stockouts and what are the reasons behind also those overstocking that I have. So now, how can I convert that report that I showed you, which is, quite in a table format, into something that looks nicer, into something where I can wake up and at 9 a.m. when I open my dashboard in one single screen, I can get a very short, sweet, and simple summary about how my stock values are performing, right? And maybe I can send this automatically on an email based on a specific alert. I can automate SAP to send me automatically an email every time my stock out percentage is above, let's say, 15%, or where my overstock or the valuation of my inventory that it's aging is about certain figure, right? So how SAP addresses this problem very well is because we are automating all this process. We are automatically here extracting data from multiple places, from multiple the sales, procurement, inventory, and unifying everything into one centralized place. And we are automating all of this process. So now, going back into the that MISI framework that I talked to you about, what I have here on the left area, which is on the gray area, those are the metrics. That's my problem statement, right? My problem statement here is that I want to analyze my stockouts and I want to analyze the overstocks that I have. And I want to analyze what is the impact of this in my business. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, everything that sits within this white area, these are the root causes. These are actually explaining why I am getting these stockouts and why I'm getting these overstocks. So I'm breaking this figure, this metric, into like a hierarchy way, where I have the problem, the stock issues, and then I'm breaking down into each component, right? So to start with, based on, remember that I showed you the on-hand report where we have the available percentage, and based on that available percentage, we are entering the items into a certain bucket. If those items are on a healthy stock, if they are stock out, are overstock, on a low stock. So in this dashboard, I can see very quickly, what is the percentage of the stock. I can see that the vast majority of my inventory between this is the item count, right? Which is I can break down the information by item and by warehouse. So I can see that overall, I have a healthy stock. It seems like my major problem sits within the stock out. There are problems, there is some demand that I'm unable to actually fulfill today. So that might go into a back order, or maybe it might just go into a lost sale. We have a slightly problem with the overstock, not that big, but out of all the orders that I have, only 68 are with overstock. And we have a few items that are with low stock. Remember that it's a range between 80% and 0%, right? So in terms of these figures, I have here the stock out percentage and the overstock percentage. So it's telling me that 11% of my stock is on stock out. So that can be critical. So now let's drill down into this dashboard to understand where the problem sits. Let's try to understand, to identify what the problem is. Is the problem within one item? Is the problem within one region or within one warehouse? So what we're going to do here, we're going to drill down to try to understand the story behind the data. And this gets me to this report where I have the same figures. I have the stock levels. I have the stock out percentage. I have the overstock percentage. And I am summarizing in a top 5 chart, which are the most problematic warehouses in terms of stockouts, and also which are my most problematic warehouses in terms of overstocks. So I can see that AO022, that's the warehouse where I have actually 17 products or SKUs with that we ran out of stock. Now, if I see this chart, and actually I can maximize so we can get a closer look at this, I'm breaking down those percentages. So I'm breaking down that big figure that I have but now by warehouse to analyze if the problem sits within. I mean, we know we have here the top 5 warehouses, but is this 17 relevant? Is this 10 relevant? Well, that will obviously depend on the full amount of products that warehouse is managing. So then I'm breaking the information down by warehouse, so we can now see how these figures are actually being, how we break down these figures. And what I have here on the right-hand side of the screen is that same report that I showed you today, but now it's connected to these metrics. And the whole idea is to have an interactive report where I can, for example, if I want to see from this warehouse, which is in France, which is the FR012, if I want to see which are those 7 products that are out of stock in this specific warehouse, I can just click on this section of the chart, and this will tell me exactly what are those specific items. So I can see that in this case, for example, this product, which is the bike pump, I had 9 products on hand. I got a purchase order of 20, a sales order of 50. So then basically my available inventory is minus 21, and I am having a big problem here in stock out. So I might lose a sale that represents 21 items, right? If I go back into this chart, I will see that my actually most problematic, and at least in terms of proportions, it seems to be this warehouse. So I want to analyze why I am having a problem of stockouts in this specific warehouse. Out of, let me hover here to see how many items I have. Out of the 22 products that I have in this warehouse, 17 are in stock out, 1 is in overstock, and only 4 items are considered here to be healthy, right? So I have a big problem managing this warehouse. And when I click to the 17, I can see which are the products. I can see that I did have on-hand quantity. I'm not purchasing anything, and I'm getting lots of sales orders, and I'm not able to fulfill my demand, right? So this is helping me to identify where the problem sits. I know that I have a problem with this specific warehouse. I know that in other warehouses, such as, for example, the one in France, I have some products where I have an overstock of the warehouse. For example, here I can see that the quantity that I have available it's 1,398, which is massive. And this is because in this specific month, I had an on-hand quantity of 165, and I made a purchase order that is 1,378, which is massive, which is actually doesn't make any sense with the demand that I have here. So this is where we are going to concentrate our attention. Let's try to identify now what are the root causes. Is this a purchase order that maybe it's meant to be distributed this amount across the different warehouses? Or did I didn't forecast the amount correctly? Or why am I getting this big amount? So if I go back into my daily inventory stock report, I'm here identifying the problems, right? The root causes, which is the stock out and the overstock. I can create different dashboards to identify what is the impact of these stock outs. How is this stock out affecting my sales and my revenue and also my margin? And also the stockouts, because the overstock, because having a big overstock, that means that we are not converting the inventory into cash, right? So as I mentioned, using this MISI framework, we're breaking these metrics into its inner components. So the available inventory is what I have today in stock, plus what I am purchasing, which is the procurement, and how my sales are performing. So the whole idea of this right-hand side is to have visibility, to understand what is the story about these metrics. If I analyze the stock, if is the stock performing, I can see, okay, I know that I have this, a big percentage of my stock seems to be healthy. 768 products seems to be in stock. Is that good? Is that actually healthy? What is actually the valuation of my whole inventory? And I can see here that my whole valuation is 81 million. On the previous month, it was 92 million. And I can see that the average valuation in the whole year is 87 million. So I can get an idea about what is the value that I have in inventory. And this gets only relevant when I start analyzing, okay, that healthy stock that I was talking about, is that inventory moving? Is that inventory aging? Is that actually a healthy inventory? And that's what we're analyzing now, the inventory turn ratios. We're analyzing the days in inventory to analyze, break down these metrics and these stockouts, and to try to identify what are the possible causes that are creating these stockouts and overstock metrics, right? Now, this is what I have today. And in these charts, let me just zoom in and zoom out. Now I think it looks better. Now, that inventory that I have, I'm building up that inventory. But is that, I can see that actually it has been growing. It seems to be a trend where I'm actually accumulating inventory. And the issue and the receipt demand seems to be same, performing kind of that are related. Right here, I might have just a spike in the demand in this specific month, which was in February 2025, but both of the metrics seems to be performing. There seems to be a correlation between the sales and procurement, right? Now, when we analyze this from the lenses of the procurement side, okay, so are the reasons why I'm running out of stock a supply-related issue? Am I having long or variable supplier lead times? Am I having inefficiencies in the replenish cycles? Or maybe the process is too manual and it takes me a lot of time. So when I drill down into this, I can see that today in my in my purchase orders, my purchase orders values is 1,523, right? K. and I have a back order of 212. So that's actually a big amount. I apologize, I forgot to correct this figure. This number should be around 13%. So that means that I have a back order which is around the 13%. Right? So now, what is the impact of this back order in my business? Maybe that might be the reason why I have stockouts, because I have a very poor performance in my procurement department. Now, if I drill down to analyze the lenses, if I drill down to analyze the performance of the overall performance of the suppliers, I have a delivery metric, the delivery index here, which we call the perfect order index, which is basically multiplying the fulfillment of the deliveries. Am I delivering? Am I fully receiving all the purchase orders that I make? And am I receiving those purchases on time? So when I multiply these two metrics, I get something which is called the perfect order index, right? So I will see here that basically my perfect order index is 46. So I have a problem, and the problem here seems to be related not to the fulfillment. I'm receiving all the orders fully delivered, but I'm receiving the orders late. So this might explain the stockouts. Now, when I analyze my purchasing trends, I'm analyzing my purchase value. This is the purchase value by week against the previous week. So this allows me to identify if I have how the trends of my procurement is performing, if I'm getting any anomalies in the procurement. Maybe remember that when we were analyzing the procurement for one item, we saw that we had a spike. So, in here we can identify in overall how my procurement is performing. And now from the sales side, this is stockouts and overstock a cause of a bad sales planning? Are we having a spike in the sales? Or did I maybe didn't have an accurate sales forecast and I didn't plan accordingly? So what I'm looking here on the right-hand side of the screen, this is on the green area. This is my revenue. So I can see what are my current year sales. I can see that actually my target was 816 million and my sales are over my target. So I'm performing actually quite well. I'm 115, right? So I'm 15% over my target. So this might be one of the reasons that explains the stockouts that I have here. Maybe I didn't expect to sell that much, and maybe that stockout is not that bad. It's because I'm actually selling more than what I expected. And on the right hand, on below the chart, I can see again that trend, how my sales are performing, my sales in my previous years, my forecast, and I can see that actually my sales are above the forecast in the last weeks. And we can see clearly that here that there is a correlation between my sales and my procurement. So it seems like everything is kind of aligned, right? So now we start identifying what are the root causes of these problems. But from this dashboard, again, the idea is to have something short, sweet, and simple that can support the narrative, that can help you understand what are the root causes of this, and that we can drill down, and that we can use this to go to the lowest level of detail. So if I want to analyze, if I want to drill down and analyze this 81K, I can always attach dashboards that can tell me much more information about my stocks. So if I drill down into this, I will see now, and apologize here if the numbers are not matching with my previous dashboard. I'm just using different data sources, but I want to illustrate the concept of how we can actually drill down and get to the lowest level of detail. So in this case, I'm drilling down and I'm diagnosing what are the possible root causes of my problem. So I can see how my inventory is performing. Here I have my inventory evaluation, so I can see that actually the value has been growing over time. it has been actually increasing, which is funny because we were analyzing this chart in the previous dashboard below, and we can see that although the on-hand quantity kind of maintains steady, my inventory value is actually increasing. So it might be maybe currency exchange rates. It can be maybe that the inventory valuation is increasing because I am purchasing more expensive items, or there's inflation and the products has increased, the value of the products has increased. So, we can always analyze this in much more further detail. We can analyze how my sales are performing. I can see where I have a spike. And it's interesting because it seems that we actually have much inventory compared to my sales value. And I can always use this as a starting point to start breaking down the data, to drill down into the information, and to get even to the lowest level of detail, which can be the transaction level. So this is one way of how we can actually analyze information. Now, going back into the Stockouts analysis that we were discussing, one report that I have created, and this analysis is more to analyze information on a by product level, not as an overall. But we can use a platform to create business alerts that can send me notifications every time a metric is out of its limits. So for this specific case, I can see that basically I have here what is the on-hand inventory that I have, and I can see the movements. I'm analyzing now that over time. So the movements again are the inflows and outflows that I have. So it's very interesting here because I can see that this is clearly a distribution company where I purchase the product and then I start consuming the product, right? The movement seems quite steady. Then I am adding additional statistics here. What is my maximum inventory? What is my minimum inventory? What is my average inventory? And here I have my buffer stock, which is my safety stock, right? So what I can define, and we can do this on an individual level by item, I can say, hey, every time my stock drops below my safety stock, I want you to send me automatically an email that can allow me to understand what are the reasons behind running out of stock. Maybe I had a higher demand, or maybe I had a back order in the purchase order. So the whole reason is to be proactive in the analysis, right? So now we can also use the solution. It's not only about, I was talking about so far, we have been looking at what happened. What is the problem today? What are the stockouts that I have today? But what if we can project this throughout the future? What if we can actually see, okay, in this case, I'm using a moving average formula to kind of predict what is going to be the consumption of my inventory in the next weeks. So this is using a moving average. This can be, we can set up inputs of data that might exist in our ERP, in our system. It can be maybe the previous year's consumption, or it can be, in this case, this is a moving average, which is based on, on alpha and beta. So if I move these metrics, I kind of, try to predict how the future of my consumption is looking like. And I can see that in this case, for example, in week 53, I will be running out of stock, right? So the whole idea is not to analyze this individually by item, but to have the capability to set up business alerts and to receive these notifications, before this metric goes too high. The same thing, right? If I want to drill down into my performance, right now I am analyzing the inventory leg. If I want to analyze my procurement side, why am I getting this very low perfect order index? I can drill down and then I can start breaking down the data. I can now start analyzing, okay, is the problem within one warehouse? So I can see here that the NA22, actually, it's performing terrible. in terms of the on-time delivery. It's always late. We can see what are the average late delivery days by product. Is it a product problem? Is it a supplier problem? Or is it just that the planning is not working appropriately? So we can always, break this down, this information based on regions, on vendors, on different dates, on companies, storage locations, cost centers. So the whole idea is to be able to drill down and to get to that lowest level of detail. And the same thing goes on the right-hand side. I have the sales performing. So if I click on this is my daily inventory stock pulse, which is basically diagnosing the stock performance through demand, supply, and execution. But, if I go here, I'm going to open, and maybe some of you have already seen this dashboard. This is my daily sales report, which is basically telling me how my demand is performing, how my sales are performing, right? So in this one, I'm breaking down the information by margin, by weekly sales, monthly, annual, and comparing what is coming on, what is what we promised, and if we are delivering what we promised, if there is any back order. And, we can analyze this on a daily basis. So the whole idea, again, is to provide you with all those tools to analyze information and go to the lowest level of detail. In this case, for example, I will just go slightly away from the stockouts. But if I want to analyze, in this case, for example, the margin, I want to analyze what is the impact of my margin, because at the end of the day, the stockouts can impact directly into the margin. And I can see that in this day, for example, I have a problem with my margin. On the 9th of October, my margin is 17%, which is below my threshold, which in this case is 20%. So if I want to analyze those sales, maybe I want to see, okay, what did I sold? What did I sell on the 9th? So basically, I can now break this down by customers. And then from here, I can break down maybe the information by, I can see that the problem here is maybe with this specific item, right? Or with this one as well, the ecosphere. And if I want to analyze which items I sold to this specific customer, I can drill down. And, I can even go to the lowest level of detail. I can say, okay, I sold 10,000 in this day. I want to analyze what are the invoices, what are the transactions, and I can get to the lowest level of detail. So what I wanted to show you today is how we are connecting everything within one dashboard. Within one dashboard, I'm able to drill down to understand what are the root causes of the problem. So to close this dashboard, it's not only about looking at inventory numbers, but it's about understanding the balance between the demand and the stock levels. So by using and breaking down this total available percentage, so we have defined a very quite simple and actual way to identify why we're facing those stockouts and what is important of those stockouts or overstocking in our business, right? Is that healthy? Are we considering these numbers to be healthy? So again, applying this MISI framework that I showed you, introduced by McKinsey, we're breaking down these figures, the problem into its root causes, and in a systematic way, we're able to identify, what are those symptoms. So this is what I have prepared for today's presentation. And, SAP is going to assist you in all of this process in automating the extraction of data, combining everything into one central hub where I can have full visibility of the problem. So you can actually analyze all of this in one screen. So over to you, Rohit.
Okay, brilliant. Let me take the screen. Thank you, David. Thank you for that demonstration. There's a lot more we have and we can show, guys. Yeah, please reach out to us after the session, and we'll talk further if required. I'm gonna steal the screen David. So if you stop sharing, okay. Can you see my presentation? Not yet. Add to stream. Can you see it now?
I can.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. I see there are already some questions here, so thank you for that. I will just cover one slide on AI, as everyone would like to, and then we'll go on to the questions. So yeah, you saw a perspective of on what good looks like, what types of metrics could come there, what types of metrics could help you understand your inventory better and make better informed decisions. And that's what the purpose of BI reporting analysis is all about. But no topic is complete these days if you don't talk about AI and where does that kind of fit in this world. And do bear in mind this is something we are continuously testing and trying to bring into our products as well. So from our perspective, we believe AI is will take us or move us towards the predictive area of it. So rather than reacting to it, can I predict elements of my forecast, elements of my future to help me manage things better today? Um, so David covered a lot around risks. David covered a lot about alerts, and that's where we see AI coming in. So stock out alerts, overstock detection, those kind of things, flagging these elements is where we really see AI coming in, where your capital is, locked up. I actually had a very interesting chat with a CEO of a company recently, and he mentioned to me, and I think in his head he's reached the panacea of AI already, and I think the products still have to catch up where he was like, Rohit, I want to just find out what is the, Pareto law, 80-20 rule. Tell me which of my 80% of my stock that is performing and 20% that is not performing. And it was just a statement he made. And that made us think and work on some ideas and concepts where you can actually do that. Because I think fundamentally it's not a impossible ask. And to be honest, BI is supposed to be like that. Self-service analytics is supposed to be like that, where you have questions like that and you go into your data and try and understand the situation, whether it's from a sales perspective, whether it's from a slow moving stock perspective or aging perspective and valuation perspective and so on and so forth. So quite an interesting discussion there. But yeah, coming back to AI, essentially, there's in terms of planning, we believe it's about flagging these alerts, detecting these anomalies, and highlighting those. And then, if you want to take it one step further, with AI agents coming in, recommending what stocks to order. I would never want, at least not at this point, want an AI agent to go in and automatically create a PO and send it to a supplier to fulfill. I don't think we're at that stage yet. But a lot of this through alerting, through analysis, can be brought to you, these 5 tasks, these 10 tasks, those kind of thing to analyze and make decisions on. I think that is where AI and AI agents can really help and quicken the process for us. Okay, let's move on to some Q&A. Okay, oh, sorry. Let me just unshare for a minute. Thank you. Right. So one of the questions raised is what are the models that is currently available that we can use to manage our inventory more efficiently? I, I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but from our perspective, we have inventory data models ready for certain ERPs that we work with, like Sage, Syspro, SAP, and Dynamics. And what that means is when you connect your inventory transactions lines, master data, header data, line data, transactional data, that cube or data model is already ready. We do sales, purchasing, inventory, and manufacturing as well. So 5 kind of main functional ERP areas, data cubes ready for you to start to use and start to analyze your inventory in other areas as well. The other thing is being a data warehouse, it allows you to bring data from literally any table, any column, user defined field, custom core, anything. So you can add to that quite quickly as well. Our world is about working in hours. We don't work in weeks, months, years, those kind of things. So I think I would like to understand the question a little bit more. But if you're talking about data models per se being available, yes, we offer those data models out of the box for certain ERPs that we work with. Okay, moving on to another question. I hope this came up in there, but it's a really interesting question. It's, can we look at this based on dates? You have sales contracts which are running from January to December. You don't want to purchase the entire quantity at once, and you want to do it over the course. You're sitting or place a PO for May 2026 order in October 2025. So I think it's an interesting concept. And yes, we have worked with customers where hey, they have these long 2, 3, 5 year contracts. We've worked it from a project profitability perspective as well, because they used to look at the contract as a whole project and look at the profitability from a personnel or a material perspective, and what it costed an eventual, because they had a budget number which they were working against in that project towards that. And I'm talking about this as a project, but a contract project, meaning they were still manufacturing a product. Basically, they provided armored vehicles to the governments, so U.S., UK government, and Jordanian government, and they used to have these 3, 5 years government contracts, and they had to manage what they wanted to do. Specific to could I have look at based on dates? I think something can be done. I think you can see a perspective of what is in stock, what is left to order to complete that order. But instead of having a stock holding view of it, you have a project or a contract view of it based on the stock holding you have. So I think something like that can definitely come through. Okay. Then another question there: can this help us in MRP reporting? 100%. I think David, you shared the stock forecasting dashboard. That was a concept dashboard we actually built for one of our customers, where we took data from their MRP recommendations plus their actuals plus what is on sales order and purchase order versus economic order quantities and safety levels on stock. Then we added moving averages on top of that, and found a linear view of what you should order and when, based on which stock code. So yes, 100%. This can 100% help in MRP reporting. Also bear in
Yeah.
mind, whenever you create an MRP suggestion or a recommendation, that also is created as a data point in your database. We can pull that, and you can review your prospective stock holding view or potential buying view based on those recommendations or suggestions that MRP makes, because the data is available in the database as a data point. So 100% we can do that. Okay, good. I hope we have answered your questions, but if we haven't, please reach out, and we would love to go further. So another question came up: are these dashboards available to use? 100%. So if you were to be on our product and have the ERP that I mentioned, which is Sage, Syspro, Dynamics, or SAP, then yes, these dashboards as a starting point, as a concept point, will be available to you. Some of it is actually pre-built, which we literally give you as part of the data model. Some of it is concepts that David has prepared for the session, but these can be replicated. They are coming from ERP data points in your system, so they can be easily replicated as well. Okay, good. Okay, I think we have answered all questions. Thank you for the support, guys. Appreciate that all coming through. And we are pretty much on time as well. So we, like I said, we run these monthly sessions where we want to bring a topic around, an ERP reporting topic, and we talk about that. Please share some ideas, guidance, and areas you would like us to cover, and we'll be happy to cover that. But yeah, thank you for your time, and look forward to seeing you in our next session. Thank you. Thanks, David.
Super. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.